be calling you because 2 losses. I mean, you know all about losses, dude. Now, they do have some good golf down here. I gotta go, man. See you. Hey, guys. What up? It's JG, and we are back on the Brain Drain. This time, the news not so good. The Auburn Tigers drop a 64-58 game at Mississippi State. A game that, let's be honest, for those of you who watched that thing from start to finish, it was not pretty. Auburn never really got clicking, never got things going. They'd have a good possession here, maybe put 2 or 3 together, but no runs. And this is a team that kind of thrives on getting deflections on the defensive end, getting out in transition, and getting quick hit runs, 10-run, 8-0 runs, 10-0 runs, 15-2 runs, those kinds of things, and never got one of those built. Mississippi State, to their credit, kept Auburn disjointed on the offensive end. A lot of little things, I think, added up to a huge problem today. I mean, Dillon was essentially a 0. Chad Baker-Mazzara was not good. I thought Janai was good. I thought Jalen was okay. Aiden was not good. Trey was pretty good today. Simo didn't give you much, which isn't unusual. Denver was about normal. I think you just get 0 out of Dillon, who'd been giving you like 10 or 12 points a game here lately. It puts Janai out there. I think he played 34 minutes tonight, which is too much for him. We talked about this after the Alabama game because some people were clamoring for him to play more minutes. He played 25, I think, in that game. He averaged 24 in the SEC coming in. So when he plays 34 tonight, first of all, he has to change how he approaches things defensively because he can't foul out with Dillon already in trouble. And 2, he just gets tired. Everybody's used to playing 24 minutes a game. That's how it's been set this whole season, and all of a sudden things change. So we'll bounce over to our main page here. And I know this is there's going to be some unhappy people. There's no doubt about it. I'm not surprised that Auburn struggled to repel the physical nature of Mississippi State. They're a very scrappy team that rebounds very well, and they did that tonight. They were plus 15 rebounding. Things got out of hand on the boards real early in this one. And those second chance points, plus 9, I thought it would have been more than that, honestly, because of the disparity in rebounding. I think they were plus 15, 45-30, and they had like 15 offensive rebounds. Lots and lots of possessions that continued on after the first shot because Auburn could not get their paws on those defensive rebounds. You just got to absolutely find a way to be better than that. Let me bounce over here to my score, our box score page. Just kind of work our way through. I mean, KD, 2 points in 22 minutes, definitely down from his normal level. But 3 steals is good, and he didn't turn the ball over a bunch. He was okay. Jalen, I thought, 0 of 4 from 3 was okay. Trey, I thought, was good, played like he usually does. 2 assists, 1 turnover. Janai had a fine game, 5 of 7, 14 points, 6 boards. Everybody was having board trouble. He was fine. He wasn't part of the problem at all. Simo, whatever. Aiden, 7 points. I don't think he scored in the last 2 games, so that's better for him. But 2 of 8, it's too much volume. And 2 of 7 from 3. I thought a lot of those threes were not wise. I thought they were too early in the shot clock and they're too far away. I still believe he needs to shoot near the line instead of 6 feet beyond it. Chad didn't do much today. 3 points on 1 of 6 shooting. 6 boards is nice for him, though. Probably just a slightly below average game for him. Denver, 8 points on 2 of 6 shooting. No rebounds. That's about average for him, I guess. Leor played, I think, 2. No, he only played 1 shift earlier there in the first half. Chaney was a little bit better than he usually is. 8 points on 3 of 4 shooting. 2 boards is a little disappointing for a power forward in 14 minutes. But Auburn had a lot of trouble rebounding the basketball in general. Cam Matthews, 14 points on 6 of 9 shooting for them, a guy that I think came in averaging 8 points a game, so he had himself a nice day. And I just, the thing that I would give Mississippi State credit for is, first of all, I thought they out-hustled Auburn for those rebounds. Big time. I didn't think Auburn showed up to win this basketball game today. I didn't like the mentality. They just seemed mushy. They seemed unwilling to kind of bow up and take command of the game. There were a lot of situations there in the second half where they were getting tighter. Maybe it was a 2-point lead. Maybe it was a 1-point lead. It got even a couple times. And it was very similar to the Alabama game earlier in the week. They did all that effort or expended all that effort to get even, and then they couldn't get ahead. I think they got up by 1 point at one stage there in the second half, or maybe they didn't. I can't remember now. But you need, when you get things equalized or you get close to that, you've got to push harder and get ahead. You got to build a 2-point lead, a 3-point lead, so you can have a little breathing room. And I think the good teams do that, and this team in these two road games, Alabama on Wednesday and then this game Saturday, is just didn't do it. And it raises some concerns about exactly who leads this ball club. I mean, who is the leader? Who's the person that when it's time to nut up and get a couple buckets, who is it? Janai is the guy who scores most efficiently. And I would call him a leader insofar as he's the best player on the team, but he's not like the rah-rah leader. The problem is that your rah-rah leader is Chris Moore. And he's Chris Moore. He's not an impactful player from a statistical perspective. So it's kind of disjointed leadership in a way, and I think that it showed a little bit today. Somebody's got to put their foot down and say, we're stepping up our effort, and it's time to take command of this game. Because, I mean, it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and I didn't think it happened at Alabama either. Scott Cease has also started both games with terrible shooting. You're right. Auburn fell in a bad hole at Alabama. It was like the last 10 minutes of that first half, where it was kind of a close game, and then it ended up being, it was 12 or 14 points at half, which sets you up for a second half where you got to come back. This game was a little tighter, even at halftime, but yeah, you just got to find a way to get ahead. I don't know what else to say. You've got to have somebody step up and say, either I'm going to make the plays or here's what we're going to do. We're going to step up our level of play and get it done. So, didn't happen. I think it's a concern. I don't know what the solution is to that particular problem because these guys are who they are. I mean, Jalen's a fine basketball player, but he's not a lead from the front kind of person. He never has been. And so I'm not going to sit here and expect him to be something that he hasn't been in 5 years, We shouldn't do that. Nobody should do that. He's a quiet, unassuming dude who takes his shots when he has an opportunity. Chazzy wants to know what team rules did Aiden and Denver violate. Of course, they did not start. Trey and KD started tonight in place of those two. Obviously, the violations were pretty minor for the fact that all they did was miss one shift. And they both checked in at like 15-minute mark of the first half and played pretty much a full game. So probably something minor. I'm thinking like, I would probably put a guess on either missed the study hall or we're out late. You can feel pretty confident it was one of those two. Yeah, that's a tough one, man. I mean, you lose at Alabama, and it's like, look, Alabama's got a good statistical profile. They've got a lot of talent. You're playing at their place. They're starting to kind of click a little bit as a team. Okay, fine. You lose a game by, 4 at Alabama. I mean, there's no shame in that. In fact, Ken Palm kept Auburn right where they were. I might have dropped it from 4 to 5. Then I think today it slipped back up to 4. But this Mississippi State game, I really thought Auburn was going to win this one by 6 or 8 points. I thought it would be ugly, but I thought it would be one that Auburn could kind of bruise its way through and be just good enough. Didn't happen today. So, yeah, frustrating situation. AU256 says, Jay, why are we poop? I don't think they're poop, but I understand where you're coming from. You expect more from this team. There's a team, of course, that won, I think it was 14 in a row. There were times during that run, particularly in the 5-0 start to SEC play, where you're thinking, okay, this team's got some real ability. But, ultimately, they beat Arkansas, who's a bad team, and a lot of the other stuff was at home. And it's pretty clear that this team plays differently on the road than they do at home right now. And it's surprising to me because the core players are older. Janai's played a bunch of basketball. Jalen's played a bunch of basketball. Trey, at this point, has played a bunch of basketball. Chad's been around. He's played at Duquesne, San Diego State, junior college, and now Auburn. He's played a lot of basketball. Denver's played a lot of basketball. This is not a young team. This is not an inexperienced team, and it's not a team that you would expect to see get so wobbly on the road. Let's be real about it. Aiden was bad today as one of the youngsters. But 7 points on 2 of 8, like it's not a disaster. And again, he did have 3 turnovers, which BP is going to probably, get on him about a little bit, but it wasn't a mess. He just didn't hit his shots. And Auburn goes 6 of 24 from 3. I can't really just blame Aiden. He wasn't the only one. I mean, Jalen goes 0 from 3-point range. KD goes 0 from 3-point range. Trey goes 0 from 3-point range. I don't know. Runner 24, whose opinion we always listen to on this. Between the A&M, Bama, and game today, this team has limited scoring and shooting ability, can defend and muscle a lot of wins, not sure can score enough to make a real run. Always remember, Runner, though, that teams, particularly college basketball teams, are they're living, breathing beings. Much more so in basketball than in football. Teams change during the course of a season. There have been a number of teams in the last 10 or 15 years that have won national titles. I'm thinking about Villanova a few years back that lose a fair amount of games. I think Villanova lost 6 to 8 games during Jay Wright's second national title. I mean, hell, the year Auburn went to the Final Four, they were a pretty average team for a lot of that season. So you can fix these things. I don't know about the leadership thing. I don't know about exactly, but maybe you don't necessarily need that. I don't know. It's a tricky situation, and this is where BP, earns his money. This is where he's a master motivator. I've always said that. He has an incredible grasp on the psychology of being a head coach and how to get guys playing in synchronicity, and I think that he will make the most of this team at some point. Right now, it's flagging a little bit. It's flagging a little bit, and today, the Alabama game didn't bother me. I mean, you want to see Auburn win the game, but I didn't really fault that game so much. But this one, just to never get going, I never felt like they clicked. I never felt like it was going the right direction. And, yeah, I'm sure that's very frustrating to everybody involved on the Auburn side. Jackson S. jumps in with a super chat. What an absolute legend. We love this guy. Says, Jay, I'm so tired of Lior and Simo getting crucial minutes. Lior got cooked against Sears. He did in the second half there on one possession. Trey, Denver, CBM, J. Will, Janai should start. Bruce needs to play the best players and not be afraid to hurt feelings. Damn, I don't think it's about hurting feelings. I think it's kind of what I was talking about, Jackson, that you need leaders. And I think Simo is a leader. He's a fully bought-in guy who's been playing here a long time. And is he the best player? Hell no. But he's an important part of the team. He doesn't play a ton of minutes. He does start, but you can see tonight he played 12, and that's even more than normal for him. Lior got one shift. I don't know why everybody gets so upset about Lior. He did get cooked one time against Sears, but Sears, he's really good. And, yeah, that's a bad switch. That's a difficult switch. But the thing is, you can't play CBM. I mean, the way CBM was playing tonight, 3 points on 1 of 6 shooting in 23 minutes. I mean, you want more of that? You say, well, that's better than Lior. Well, he played a whole hell of a lot more than Lior. Simo got 12 minutes. Chad got 23. That's even a little bit more than it normally is. A little bit more tilted towards CBM getting the minutes. So, they have some issues at 3. That is the truth. I kind of like them at the other spots, but at small forward, you got Chad has his games, but he wasn't great against Alabama, and he wasn't great today. Simo is what he is, and Lior is what he is. And those are your choices. Period. Let's see. Runner 24 says it's not the losing, it's the inability to shoot. Guys will not become 35 to 40% shooters over the last 2 months. Well, I have to get these numbers in front of me, but Auburn's got several guys that are in that range you're talking about right now. Let's see, from 3-point range, Chad is a 38% shooter from 3. Jalen is a 42% shooter from 3. Trey is a 40 or 41% shooter from 3. So, I mean, yeah, they do have those guys. They didn't hit today. Now, I'm usually not one to sit here and go, well, they just missed shots. It's like you ask a girl out who's way out of your league and she says no and slaps you in the face and you say, we'll just get them next time. No, maybe you need to rethink about that. I'm not a guy who just sits around saying, yeah, they were cold today. If you're cold, then you work for better shots closer to the bucket that you're going to actually hit. And I think Auburn did that to some degree. Last, 7-8 minutes of the game, I thought they were focused more on getting Janai the ball and getting Jalen the ball, which is smart. Two guys that have proven themselves to be reliable scorers, guys who come up big, typically in difficult situations. But tonight wasn't it. It wasn't it. Hayden's in the house. What up, brother? Says, what's up, JG? Hope you're doing well, man. Just hanging in here, bro. Doing the best possible. Mitchell C. says, Bruce not happy with shot selection. Got to take away the green light for some. He is big on freedom now, and that's a big part of his recruiting pitch to a lot of these players is, hey, man, I'm not going to curtail you a lot. I want you guys to express yourself. You guys have green lights. I've been giving guys green lights. Ask the players who have been here. We give you freedom. So that's a big part of what he's doing. That's a big part of his identity as the head coach at Auburn. But I think you're right. I think you got to pull some of these guys in, or they got to at least have conversations about, we need to be a little more careful when we discern between a good shot and a shitty shot, because there were some bad ones tonight. Those 3-point shots from Aiden 6 feet beyond the line with 17 seconds on the shot clock drive me crazy. And I don't think that BP's stoked about it either. He just doesn't. Let's see. Daniel M. says, early in the year, depth was our strength, and guys were coming into the game with major energy. In the last 2 games, it seems like we're tired, unmotivated, and unorganized. Got to fix that. Yeah, I agree. Particularly today. I thought Alabama, I didn't feel like the effort was bad. I didn't feel like the effort was awful here either. They just couldn't get grinding. They couldn't get going. But yeah, I know what you mean. The energy doesn't seem quite the same. Stallburn wants to know if we can get Denton's mom as a guest host for one of these. I mean, she would probably do it, but the problem is that she's a Bammer. And Cuz and Denton's mom and dad are they're Bammers. And they're not the annoying kind. They're the kind that actually graduated from Alabama and don't talk shit, but I don't know. Let's see. Kanuman says BP mentioned not being happy about it to Andy on the post-game radio interview. Interesting. He is definitely going to. BP's very candid on those shows, which is something I really like about him. Let's see. Chazzy says, do you think they should have come home, then flown out to Starkville? I think this whole bus trip has wore them down. That is possible, too, but that was the plan all along. I need to sit down and talk to them about it, because we've joked a long time years ago in the bunker about how Allen was trying to get people to take bus trips and shit to save money. I don't think that's going on right now. I haven't heard any bitching about that, and I don't know about this specific situation here, but I haven't been hearing the same kind of complaining from coaches that I did 4 years ago. Believe me. And coaches will whine if they feel like they're getting their corners cut on them, but I haven't heard that much. So this is a stinger. You look over here at the schedule. I mean, it's 2 on the road, lost back-to-back. Got Vanderbilt coming in on the midweek game. You got to win that one. I mean, Vanderbilt's been really bad. Although that game was reasonably close in Nashville, a game that Auburn, I thought, kind of dilly-dallied a little bit in that game. And then you got to play at Ole Miss next weekend. Ole Miss is a weird team. They're a lot better than they were. When they're engaged, they're pretty damn good. Auburn just pushed them around, got out to a great start at home, but you got to start wondering or start thinking about things, handicapping it in your head. This Auburn team is a different beast at home, and we're starting to see that. When you think about their worst performances this season, it's this one. Baylor, for me, because they didn't close. They played a pretty good game, but they didn't close. Alabama played a pretty good game, didn't close. And then Vanderbilt, they won the game, but that was not a good performance at all. They were just playing an awful team who has one player, really, 1.5. So, yeah, this is a tough road coming up. Vanderbilt shouldn't be tough, but at Ole Miss, again, road team, can they get it done? And then Bammer inside Neville at Florida, a team that conceded a huge lead to Georgia today, but ultimately won that game in overtime. Florida, coached by Todd Golden, a former Auburn assistant, is a pretty good team. And, again, Auburn on the road is questionable. South Carolina's been playing pretty good basketball here lately. And then Kentucky. But those are at home. After that, it's a little bit better. Tennessee is going to be a problem, but at Missouri should not be a problem. And a lot of the big games are going to be at home. So I still think this team's in position to be, I mean, obviously, this is a March Madness team. There's a team that may end up challenging for the SEC title because the other teams, with the possible exception of Tennessee, have their own issues too. I think Alabama's got some losses ahead of them. Auburn may as well. To me, Kentucky, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, and maybe South Carolina. I'm not sure what to feel about them yet, but those first four are the ones. Somebody in that group is probably going to win this league. And Auburn can definitely tighten up and win this thing, but they've got to tighten up, particularly on the road. Auburn leading for just 149 today, whereas the state Bulldogs led for, I think 31 and a half minutes. That's just not Auburn basketball. Mississippi State plus 14 in the paint is odd, considering Jalen's on this team, considering Janai's on this team, considering Dylan has been such a benefit. He was horrible today. Dylan was an absolute zero. 4 fouls in 5 minutes. His first 5 minutes of the game, he had 4 fouls. And now that forces Janai to play too many minutes, and it gets him frustrated, and he's got to be careful on his defensive tasks because he can't foul out because there's nobody left. It just changes so much when you do that. And it's almost like Dylan has been like this new guy most of the season, and he regressed 2 years in one night. He's back to playing, as of today, he's back to playing the way he did as a sophomore. And he's going to stand up. He's going to get it back. And you got to find a way when you're playing like this to turn it around, to put your foot down and say, okay, we got to win this game. And it didn't happen today. Charlie C says Jalen disappears too much. He kind of does, man. He had a run there where he wasn't disappearing at all, but against Alabama, just kind of so-so, and then today, just really not very good. He is a quiet, unassuming human being. He's not a yeller. He's not a rah-rah guy, and I think his game can be a little subdued. He's still a good basketball player. And he's just very calm and he's serene. But, yeah, you need him to be a little fiery. Anyway, AU Taxman, I'm drinking some of the Four Roses small batch. Small batch select. AU Taxman says some sane basketball opinions, perhaps. You know me. I feel like I've got the market cornered on sane Auburn basketball takes. It's a good team. It's got a lot of depth. I think somebody needs to step up as a more go-to kind of guy. It could be Janai. It could be Trey. It could be Jalen, although I don't think Jalen has the personality for it. It could be Chad, but Chad gets a little emotional. We just got to think about it rationally, You see people in the bunker saying, season's screwed. It's over. This team blows. You're like, come on, man. This team doesn't blow. Irvin says, what the hell was that? I'm going to laugh on that one. Yeah, it was not great, Irvin. And I thought the effort was okay, Irvin. I think it was just more frustration with not being able to get those runs that kind of energize or kickstart the whole operation. This is a team that's, think about it. Aiden is kind of an emotional, vervy player. Trey is kind of an emotional, vervy player. KD is an extreme version of that. CBM is an extreme version of that. This is a team that needs energy. Need to create energy to play at its best. And tonight, you didn't see that. They weren't getting the deflections on the defensive end. They got out in transition a little bit, but not nearly enough for them. Now, that one I'll agree with. We did not look like ourselves. It was not a on-brand Auburn performance at all. It just didn't look like Auburn, the way that Auburn plays. Because Auburn usually has active hands on defense, tapping balls, tipping balls, getting balls out in transition, and just running past people, and that didn't happen tonight. Mississippi State is a team that doesn't have the same kind of depth that Auburn does, and so Auburn wants to run. Mississippi State wants to play half court, and that game was played at a half court pace. And that's to Mississippi State's advantage, and it was that way the whole game. Ronan24 says probably needs to be a guard or a wing to step up and be the scoring lead. Let Janai be the number 2 guy, which includes easy buckets in the paint. Yeah, he's really good at that in general. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, talking about Aiden, I think is what he is. I think Trey is still coming along. He's usually a pretty good benefit. Today, not quite as good as you maybe wanted him to be. One Fly Eagle says SMH 2 losses in a row. I mean, it happens, bro. It does happen. I believe this loss bumps Auburn down to 4th place now. And it's still jumbled at the top. I still think Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama are the teams that are really contending here. South Carolina may work their way in there. Florida, I guess, maybe could slide in there. I don't think they're going to challenge for the title, though. Auburn just got to get a little tighter on the road. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm not going to sit here and draw these huge, long conclusions about, oh, God, they're screwed. I mean, it's a long basketball season. You play whatever it is, 25 games, and in the regular season, 30 games. You got a lot of chances in basketball to get yourself straight. And that's what's got to happen. And BP has shown through the years that he's pretty good at doing that, with the exception of the Sharif Cooper team. But he just didn't have any shooters. And he really didn't have any shooters last year. He has some this year. Or at least they're better. They've gone from awful three-point shooting to decent three-point shooting, but today was not maybe the day you're really wanted to talk about it. Yeah, I figured it would be one of these days now. Well, take a look. Let me get a screenshot here of the latest. I got to make sure I got the latest, actually. Ken Palm statistical profile now that the Mississippi State game has concluded. They have dropped Auburn to 7 now in the country, which really ain't too bad considering what went down. I'm going to screenshot this, and we will take a gander at the Ken Palm numbers. The latest. We're going to get the latest. Switch over here to this page right here, and then we will just throw this bad boy up and take a gander. So this is Auburn's, the scouting report for the Auburn Tigers. Yeah, still very good defensively. I thought defensively they were good today. Could have rebounded a little bit better, but I thought positionally the defense was good. I thought the effort was good on the defensive end, and they got their hands on a bunch of balls. It didn't seem like they were ones that could get them out in transition. I think Mississippi State finished with 16 turnovers, which is a lot. Auburn was, again, not very turnover prone today. I think they were in single-digit turnovers, so that was good. But Auburn's offense, still 17th in the country overall. This is after the Mississippi State game, but that three-point shooting number has not been going up for a while. It's been dropping for a while, and that's just it's concerning because I really thought that Auburn had turned that current corner with Trey getting better as a shooter, with Aiden coming in as kind of a long-range guy, with Denver being an accomplished shooter coming in. I mean, I thought you've got this infusion now. You've got dudes, that can come in and shoot and from long range. And Denver has been okay, but he hasn't been what we thought he would be. I was expecting him to be, a 42, 43% shooter from three, and he's been more like a 30 here in conference season. He's been more like a 30, 33. William H. says they cannot make easy buckets around the rim. It does seem that way. Janai is pretty good at that. But, Jalen today had a couple opportunities at, inside of 3 feet and missed them. I remember the one where Mississippi State was trying to get the ball inbounded or off the baseline. They hit the back of the rim, and it bounced down, and Jalen had just literally lay it in, and he missed it. I mean, shit, dude, that's 2 points. In a game where 2 points meant a lot, Got to have that one. Got to have that one. Wrong one. Got to have that one. I did talk to J-Head earlier. We definitely want to get him on the horn. I think he told me that he didn't have an opportunity to see much of the game today. But that doesn't matter because we like to talk to him about stuff that is more global, maybe more football-y. There has been a lot of things going on in the football world at Auburn. Let's see. T. Reed left for UCF to coach with Gus. We really like Trevon. We like what he brings us. And that is I mean, I'm happy for Gus. I'm really happy for T. Reed, but it hurts Auburn. He's been a very enthusiastic recruiter for Auburn. The thing is with T. Reed, though, is that he's got to go do this, right? I mean, he can't. He's never coached. I mean, ever. I mean, you can't just walk in my opinion, at a place like Auburn with zero coaching background and start coaching. I don't think you can do that. So he's going to go to UCF and earn his stripes on the field, and I think in a number of years, if it's 2 years, if it's 3 years, if it's 5 years, he starts becoming somebody that you talk about here. But to go down to Central Florida and kind of ply the trade and get better and learn how to do it from some guys that really know how to do it, I think that's good. Also, we need to talk about Will Redmond, who's going to be the GM for football that Hugh hired away from LSU midweek. This is a huge hire. He's somebody with a lot of experience at doing all the things that need to happen behind the scenes to get football teams together. He is a talent assessor. He can coordinate with their official talent assessors to get everything put together and help these coaches understand who the best options are for them out there. It, of course, comes down to the coordinators and the head coach, but you need people out there on the ground who can kind of whittle things down before you even have to do that. And that's where Will Redmond comes in, among other things. Runner 24 is with me on here. Reed needed to get a job like the UCF job if he wants to coach at Auburn or another real school. Good for him, absolutely. I'm very excited for him. I mean, I think UCF, they're solid, and I think he's got some professionals down there that he can learn from. And he'll be with Cam Martin is coaching down there as well. So Ted Roof will be his defensive coordinator, somebody he knows personally. So that's great. It's a great situation for T. Reed. Gets a big raise. It's all good for him on that. The DC search probably will get wrapped up this week. They interviewed DJ Durkin. Maybe it's probably been 10 days ago now. And Freeze met with Chris Kiffin on Tuesday. And Chris Kiffin now is kind of thinking about what he wants to do, plotting his future. He, as I understand it, has some interest from some NFL teams, 2 NFL teams, about a defensive coordinator opening that he is exploring. I don't know if that's something he would actually interview for or if it's just chatter. I don't know. So I think the holdup, in my view, is that Chris Kiffin's trying to figure out what his next move is. I think that's the choice for Auburn if he's available, which is to be determined. If it's not him, you think DJ Durkin is somebody that Auburn will take a very close look at. But I will say this. There are people out there who are not fans of DJ Durkin based on what happened when he was the head coach at Maryland. They had a player die during workouts. He was absolved of any responsibility, but there was essentially a revolt from inside the program saying, we don't want him as our coach anymore. And he resigned. And, I mean, honestly, man, to me, that's kind of a scarlet letter. Now, he has since coached at both Florida and Texas A&M, so, I mean, the SEC is not going to get in the way of it's not going to block the hire, but, and I don't know how I feel about it personally, man. I mean, I'm not obviously in favor of kids dying, and that's something that I would imagine would stay with you your whole life. You would worry about that and second guess that, because when you're the head coach, man, you're in charge of everybody. I think good head coaches truly give a shit about the well-being of everybody under their employ, whether it's a player or a coach or a staffer. But yeah, that's a tough one. I think there's some folks in the Auburn administration that are not fans of hiring him. And he was in the hunt for the job at Missouri that ultimately went to somebody else. So he's still kind of floating out there. Doesn't have a job yet. So I guess he may be in a situation where he's got to sit and wait for Auburn. Pocket Watch says, if Kiffin doesn't know, I doubt he'd want to recruit. He was a very good recruiter when he worked for Freeze he was the defensive recruiting coordinator at Ole Miss under Freeze. So, in the early part of Freeze's tenure. So, he definitely has some experience with that. Maybe it's a question of, does he want to get back into that? I don't know. And I don't necessarily think if his name, I don't know, if he had never worked with Hugh, I doubt he would be given this much leeway to kind of take his time. But I think from Hugh's perspective, he's already got Charles Kelly hired as a co-coordinator. Charles Kelly's been out there recruiting on the front line here lately. So, I mean, he doesn't feel like he's really playing from behind here or anything. Eric asks, any chance it ends up being neither of those two? Of course. I think it's definitely possible. I think it's going to end up being Chris Kiffin, but I could see it being like Kiffin says, I'm gonna take a coordinator job. Then he's out, and then they just kind of pass over on Durkin. But I think they were pretty stoked from a coaching perspective. The actual coaches were pretty stoked with Durkin's interview, and they thought he was a good fit here. They thought he was good. He was impressive. Spicy P, my man, what's up, brother? Says with Pettiford coming in next year, who plays the 2? No way Aiden leaves. I agree with you on that. I mean, Aiden, I guess, could get in the portal, but he's not going to the NBA. Tahad is probably more of a 2, honestly. He has the body of a point guard, but he's more of a 2. He's kind of like Tony Delk was at UK back 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Shit. Body of a point guard, game of a shooting guard. He can dribble. I'm not trying to say that. He's just kind of a combo guy. He's a driver. He's a creative finisher. He's a mess in transition. So I think he takes the KD job. He's like a better KD. So I think, it'd be him and Denver if Denver stays. And then, and KD. He may have another year. I don't know right off the top of my head. MWD says Kessler Jabari team was 2 years ago now, was the antithesis of the typical Bruce team. So no shock they're the outlier. Yeah, that's kind of an odd team to have kind of a slow center. Although he played with Wiley. Runner 24 says Tony Delk could definitely score, but he also was small. He sure was. And he was just a tweener his whole career. He actually played in the NBA for a little while. A kid out of Tennessee, played at Kentucky from 93 to 96 or so. Good dude, but I'll tell you guys, I dog cussed him so bad. This is back when I was just a fan. I wasn't a sports reporter yet. He just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a bass fiddle. But he eventually did get going. I think y'all really enjoy Pettiford, though. He has become one of those guys. When Auburn got in on him early, it was like, he was a good player. He was a 4-star, but it was like a lower 4-star. And now he's become, one could argue, one of the 2 or 3 most explosive, intriguing players in that entire class. So, and he's signed, sealed, and delivered. He's coming here, so he's going to be a big plus. I don't know. I can't think of an Auburn player that, in the past that's like him. I mean, he's something like Chris Denson, but he's better. He's just extremely explosive. And I was a big fan of Chris Denson. That guy, he did a lot of work, a lot of creativity in his game. So yeah, J-Head, I talked to him earlier, and he said he would love to come on the show. We talk about, whatever. We can talk about some basketball. But he had indicated that he wasn't having a chance to watch much basketball today. So maybe we kind of push football with him a little bit more, maybe. So let's get him on the horn and see what's up with Mr. Head. What up, J-Head? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I assume there's a little bit of doom and gloom in the chat right now, given that we're coming off another unexpected loss, I would say, by the fan base. But overall, doing well.
Yeah, I know. I think you didn't have much of a chance to see this particular game. They just kind of never clicked, man. They never got those big runs, and I thought they never really got out in transition, and they just kind of were stuck in second gear the whole day,
Yeah, it's the unfortunate part of a team that's probably still finding itself a little bit, Jay. I mean, I think they know their identity, but when you go on the road and you get tested in the SEC the way this team has in the last 2 games, you find out a little bit about yourself. And I think even the best teams have to go through some arduous periods there where things don't exactly click the way you want. The good thing is you rebound, you come home to play Vanderbilt, you go on the road against another favorable matchup against Ole Miss, and then you get Alabama to come into town. So you get the opportunity to kind of get revenge there for what happened in Tuscaloosa and get back off a 2-game snide that I know Bruce doesn't want to be on, but I think he believes this team needed to be exposed, needed to play in these kind of atmospheres to become a better tournament team when it comes time.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. He kind of did want to be exposed. This is a great time to do it, too, because you have a long time to retool and get things straightened out,
Extremely long time. I mean, I think the team that went to the Final Four was 13-5 in conference. So look, you still got, even if you're going to match that team as far as what they did in conference play, you've still got 3 more losses, that you can grab between now and then, and it's not the end of the world. This is a good basketball team. It doesn't have a lot of superstars, so they got to play each person up and down the roster's got to play well, and I think they will. But you're right. I think Bruce wanted to see them tested. He wanted to see them in an atmosphere like this and get exposed. And now he's going to have their full attention going into a week where they got an opportunity to rebound. And I think it'll be much needed, and they'll be a better team for it for sure.
Hey, that Final Four team, I was just looking this up. They were 7-7 when they had their loss at Kentucky when they got their doors blown off, and they ended up winning 12 straight. So they finished the SEC season 11-7 that year.
Exactly.
But it goes to show you, J-Head, you can get going late in basketball. In the football, it's not like that. But basketball, you can't.
No. Absolutely. Every game. Now, it used to be that way. We'll see what it's like in the playoff era for football. But it used to. Every game you were living and dying. You had to play well from jump because every game mattered so much. With basketball, you're right. You can have a couple games where you don't necessarily play up to your best, but it's what your tempo is as you get into March and how well you're playing. What you don't want to be is one of those teams that's a front runner where you start off hot. And that's what we saw a couple of years ago with the team with Walker and Jabari, and then we started to get exposed down the stretch, and the team just wasn't right as they went into the tournament and got beat by a really hot Miami team. Yeah. What you hope is this Auburn team will be more like Miami, and that they'll start to kind of catch fire at the right time.
That'd be the best thing possible. Listen, let's talk some football, brother. Will Redmond, that Freeze hired away from LSU to be the general manager. A lot of people who in the industry who know a lot about these personnel folks think this was a heist. Think this was a major, major get for Auburn. Kind of explain to us, J-Head, why this is such a big deal.
Well, first and foremost, I want to agree with the people in the industry that said that about Will Redmond. I think he's a rising star, somebody that has been a director of player personnel at Middle Tennessee State, director of recruiting at Kansas, and then DTP at LSU, but cut his teeth underneath Austin Thomas, who's kind of the guy in the player personnel world right now that people are starting to model themselves after. But Will Redmond is a guy, he's a name I heard about 2 weeks ago, did some research, and just the evolution of the player personnel world, specifically as it pertains to roster management, is just vital right now. You used to have just basically what we considered high school and JUCO recruiting as of about 5 years ago. Well, that's all changed with the portal. And not only do you have the portal aspect that you have to consider, but it's your own player retention, and then you factor in NIL, the ability to need to have somebody that can network with collectives and so that everybody's on the same page as far as what players need to be paid. It's too much for one person and Hugh Freeze to manage. So why not bring in somebody that can take some of the things off your plate? You can concentrate on being the play caller. Now, I'm not saying Hugh's going to get away from recruiting. That's not going to happen. But he absolutely needs somebody to take the day-to-day things off his plate to be able to manage the board a little bit better, to manage some of the team in and outs better. And it's an operation that's going to continue to grow. And Auburn's not going to be the first or the last that you're going to see hire a general manager. That's a term that's going to start to pop up more and more. Auburn's just on the cutting edge of this and one of the first teams to do it.
Yeah, he's going to be huge as far as just coordinating, scouting, and understanding exactly what this team needs, right? You kind of, the head coach gives you an idea of what he wants, and then you go find, right?
Sure. And then you're also doing future scout for what you're going to try to have 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Now, that's extremely hard to do in today's game because in the day and age of the portal, what you used to could bank on from player retention, you can't anymore. So it's a very difficult landscape to be in. I think he's a young, very, ambitious guy that's really going to put his best foot forward in this position. He's got a great mindset, great temperament for it. Good communication skills and contacts. They're going to help him as far as player acquisition goes. But again, the business part of this is what's made it essential. Having the ability to know, let's be honest here. NIL is what I would call player compensation now. It's not what NIL was intended to be. And so you have to be mindful of how much money you have on hand, who can be slotted to what you're going to pay at certain positions. And I'm not saying that he's going to do all of that. Obviously, as the rules how OTV handles that. But I would say that there's some input from Auburn to OTV as far as who's making what, as far as that's concerned. That's not an official statement from OTV. That's just my 2 cents.
Right,
Let's put it like that.
And I guess he'll work with Ethan, who's been doing a lot of recruiting. Like he's kind of like the director or de facto director of recruiting. So those two will kind of work together, I reckon. Yeah.
Sure. Well, you have to have evaluators, then you have what I consider connectors. And Ethan's more of a connector where, you know what I mean, they're actually reaching out and being the tangible part of the recruiting aspect of it. Because everything falls underneath the umbrella of talent acquisition. And then you have evaluation, and then you have actual recruiting, which is sales, pitch, hospitality, all that. That's where Ethan Johnson kind of comes into play. And then you're going to have the evaluation side. And this young man is going to oversee everything.
Yeah.
So it's a huge piece. It's something that if Hugh was going to get back into calling plays and being more involved in the offense side of the ball, he needed somebody that he could trust. I see this kind of in a way, I mean, it's a more sophisticated version, but when Patrick Sedes came in to help Gus kind of retool his front office, you know, when he was making that transition, coming over from Arkansas State, I believe he had Casey Woods as his DPP, and that was not a position that Casey really wanted or ever wanted to be in, but he did it. But it needed to be vastly overhauled, and Patrick came in and kind of did that for them and really kind of set that office up for success. I see Will Redmond being able to do the same thing and working in combination with AK and Ethan Johnson.
Nice. Yeah, Sudis did a hell of a job here. Went on to Georgia Tech and North Carolina now. So.
Correct.
Yeah, he was a really, really good pickup. T. Reed ends up going to UCF yesterday, going to be coaching quarterbacks for the Knights. Big step for him, J-Head. I mean, he needs to get on the field somewhere, and now he gets his chance. Massive
step. And, look, I love Trevon. I love what he's done for Auburn. And he's had a kind of an unconventional path to getting onto the field. You know, he's never cut his teeth as a GA, never been necessarily an analyst. He's kind of been featured in a recruiting role and a player development role behind the scenes for Auburn. But his ambition was always to move onto the field at some point. And Gus is giving him that opportunity. So tip my hat to Gus for taking a shot on Trevon, somebody that I know he has a lot of affection for. And just really huge for Trevon and his career development and what he's trying to become. He wasn't going to get that opportunity here at Auburn. Wes McGriff, obviously Kelly are here. And you're talking about tenured guys in the SEC with, 20-plus years of coaching experience. Trevon's not there just yet. Now, he was an invaluable part of the recruiting piece, and he's going to have to replace that. But just, hat tip to Trevon for going after what he wanted, hat tip to Gus for giving him that opportunity. And I know that he was proud of Trevon, and this would be a situation, they'll have to replace it, but it's replaceable for what he's doing. But I'm really proud of T. Reed and this step he's taken in his career.
Yeah, you're right. Unconventional trip to where he's at. Defensive coordinator search. I'm a little bit baffled by this one. I think he's in a holding pattern, Jay-Head. You and I have texted about this pretty much all week. I think he's in a holding pattern with Chris Kiffin to see what he wants to do. I think Chris Kiffin's the guy that Freeze would like to have be the defensive coordinator, but I think he's willing to give him a little bit more time. I do think that Freeze wants to get something picked this coming week, though.
I would agree with that, and that kind of meshes up. I think I had said that I would start to lower the percentage on Kiffin if the decision didn't come by Friday. I no longer feel that way. I think they've got a little bit into next week as far as that's concerned. And I do believe you're right. Hey, after I saw you post that and you and I texted, I kind of checked back. And that was the feedback I got as well, is that, hey, he's just, he's being very thorough about this. He's letting, he's going to let Chris kind of make a decision about what he wants to do. So he's very certain about what he does if he chooses, to accept the Auburn job. And you've got a nice – I think we both agree that it's Chris Kiffin and DJ Durkin at the top of the board. So I don't think that either decision is a bad one. And realistically, if Chris Kiffin is who he wants, then he should wait for a little bit longer. Now, they got to make a decision here next week because you're getting about a month out from spring training. And so you'll need around 30 days or so to kind of put the scheme together, make sure you're teaching it to the assistant coaches so they can teach it to the players, figure out an install period, scout the roster, all that other stuff. That can be accomplished in 30 days. And it's really not, at this point, it's not essential for recruiting. You're so early in the 2025 recruiting class, and you're already so far ahead of where you've been that you don't necessarily have to have a defensive coordinator from a recruiting perspective. So it's all about making sure that you get somebody there for spring training, that they have adequate time to put their system in place, teach it to the other coaches, make sure that everything's starting to filter down to the players and that you have a good feel for the roster as you move into spring, or as good a feel as you can have for having never coached these players before.
Agreed on that.
But my expectation would be that you have a defensive coordinator named sometime in the early part of next week. That's kind of my expectation now on resetting things. But I think you and I both heard like he was done with interviews around Tuesday, Wednesday-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And so now the decision's been made, and it's just, allowing things to kind of play themselves out somewhat.
Last thing I want to ask about is just Ryan Williams recommitting to Alabama midweek. Some people, obviously Auburn, I thought that they had a really good shot at him, but things turned around pretty quickly. What's your read on that one?
So you're absolutely right. And again, that's a situation that you and I texted about. I got a phone call and a text on Tuesday basically saying, hey, confidence is starting to dip. I think Alabama obviously prioritized Ryan Williams in a way, being able to show him what Kalen DeBoer was able to do at Washington, how he was able to feature Polk and a handful of those other guys, and then sold him on the fact of him being the guy, not a collection of guys, which is kind of how Auburn was pitching it. It was more he was going to be the featured guy, and I think that seemed to resonate with him also with the offense. And again, this is a guy that was committed to Alabama, whether he was committed to because of Nick Saban or whether he was committed to the university. I don't truly know, but you knew there was always a tie there, and I think it was something that was always going to be difficult for Auburn to overcome. I actually think that if Nick Saban had stayed the head coach, it might have played to Auburn's benefit a little bit better because of the style of offense that Tommy Rees was running by comparison to what Kalen DeBoer is going to do. But can't cry over spilt milk. You brought in a fantastic wide receiver class. You got two guys that are absolutely being the 2 deep next year, potentially 3, contingent on how Bryce Kane does and can he surpass Jay Fair and some of those other guys in the slot. But there's no doubt in my mind that Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson are going to be guys. One's going to be a starter, the other's going to be in the 2 deep, and they're both going to be contributors to go along with some of the other weapons that you brought in. But, to your point, yes, Auburn had a really great shot at Ryan Williams. Yes, things changed very quickly in recruiting, and specifically in the day and age of NIL. And so these things happen. And you can't lose sleep over it. I'm sure Hugh Freeze is going to continue to recruit Ryan Williams until he absolutely signs in MLI with the University of Alabama. But you start to pick up the pieces and move forward as far as what you're going to do with your portal class in the spring and how you're going to start to fill out your 2025 class. You don't have time to worry about who's not in your class. You're concentrated on who he is.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, they had a great class, even without Ryan Williams. Probably number one class in the country. So
I would think so from a wide receiver standpoint. There were 4, and contingent on what recruiting service you're looking at, there were 5 top 200 wide receivers in the state of Alabama. Auburn landed 4 of them. That tells you how deep and how loaded and how good this wide receiver class was for Auburn this year.
It's pretty good.
So, very good, man. Now, look, maybe the number 1 one went to the University of Alabama, but I'll take quantity of that sort, quantity with that level of quality over just one from quality. And that's not for me to disparage Ryan Williams. He's a fantastic player. I think I've been on record saying he's a generational type. But I think we got some fantastic players as well. And I do believe that in Hugh Freeze's system, those big body guys are the ones that have been more featured in one-on-ones. And that's what you got in Perry and Cam, and that's what you really needed.
Yeah, word. J-Head, you're an absolute stud, man. I know you've given us a lot of time here, and most of the shows we do, you always jump on. You're always so willing to help and hang out, so I appreciate you, brother.
Well, love you, Jay. Love this show, love the platform, and I'm just continue to be very thankful that you allowed me to be on your show and to be able to talk to the people in the chat tonight, and those still converse with those on the bunker. But love all you guys, man, and hope you all have a great weekend. Okay.
Right. See you, J-Head. Bye.
Thank you, buddy.
Bye. There he is, J-Head. We're glad. He is so grateful. I am so grateful, I should say, for him to be coming on the show with us. Every time I ask him, he's always like, hell yes, I'm game. I want to come on. So we thank him for that, and we love J-Head's feedback. Kanuman, I think he did answer your question there about Will Redmond, kind of how he fits in and what he really likes about that addition. He did some really, really big-time work at LSU, and he is, if you're ever looking at LSU with Brian Kelly there and saying, man, they got going, they got their feet on the ground and got rolling quickly, this is the guy behind the guy here. Will kind of orchestrated that, and Now he's going to be here in a different situation. Auburn's already got a lot of inertia going here, but we'll see what he can do here. Auburn's very, very stoked to have him, and I know that Freezes in particular, yes. Knuman says, what a gracious, awesome dude. He really is. Everything you think you know about him, you do. I mean, he is that guy. Had a chance to hang out with him in person several times, and he's exactly that guy. And, me and Jay Lee kind of got to know him when Jay Lee was here. And now he does a show or maybe two over there with Jay Lee at Jay Lee's site, and we kind of share him, as it were. But we love him. He's just indefatigable when it comes to talk about Auburn and finding out about Auburn. Really, Blake in the house, Mr. Positive says, Wardam Eagle, much love Auburn family. It's unfortunate these boys can't win close games on the road, but I believe these kids can get there. They just need to man up, and not get pushed around. Good stuff, Blake. Appreciate you being here, brother. Always very positive, and on a day like this where Auburn lost another tough game on the road, a game that you kind of feel like they had a chance to win this game, that they were probably the more talented team. Just got to be calm. And J-Head was certainly pushing that agenda as well. Basketball is a lot different than football. You've got a long way to go, and all that matters is you get in the playoffs or the tournament, and then you play your best ball. And that's what the 2019 Final Four team did, and this team can still do it. I think they have a lot of talent. This team is very talented. It has an outstanding coaching staff, and it has a head coach who I believe is at the top of his game right now. So there's a lot of positives, and I'm not jinxing anybody, knock on wood, but they haven't dealt with many injuries either. So, I mean, they're going to be full power. They've been full power. They just got to get a better understanding of how to turn things around on the road. That's the bottom line. And I think they'll get there. Got a call coming in from one of our channel legends, Mr. Why Not AU. What's up, brother?
What is up, JG?
Word,
How are you, man?
Glad to have you back on the airways with us, man.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. I had a board meeting up in Philly today, and on the drive back to rich Vegas, Virginia. So, just thought I'd give a shout to everybody.
Hell yeah. I know you're disappointed with this loss, man, and probably the one before it too. What are you thinking about this team?
Still love them. I think they are what we thought they were going to be. I think everybody jumped to a lot of conclusions. I think that there are some things we saw these two games that they need to work on, definitely. But love this team, love them for who they are, and like their competitive nature.
I know you're. Do you get frustrated seeing, Simo and Lior out there? Are you one of those, or do you see some value in just getting some minutes so CBM doesn't got to play 35 minutes?
I'm beginning to question that a little bit. Bruce, I got to give it to Bruce. I mean, he's gotten us to where we are in basketball, which no one ever thought. At the same time, man, I see Chaney Johnson getting more comfortable with the pace of play in the league. I see Denver Jones kind of emerging, kind of leading, kind of stepping up. I see those two guys really needing more minutes, perhaps. And I hope that Bruce takes a look at what's going on, and look at the kind of the waves of the game and the flow of the game. And I hope the players are honest with him too. If we got guys that are about team and not about just individual, maybe we can work this out where we get some more minutes for some of these guys that I think if they get in a flow, they can help us. And I think Chaney Johnson, I really like what I'm seeing out of him the last few games.
Yeah, he's definitely gotten better. He had a couple mid-rangers today, and I mean, he's got some ability. At this point, he's more of a hustle guy, but he's got a mid-range shot, and it's nice to see him hit a few like he did tonight. He can be part of the solution, I think, going forward for sure. The schedule gets a little bit better, though. Vanderbilt.
It does, but then again, it's the SEC, man. Lock them up, get ready. I don't care if it's Vanderbilt at home or, we're not a dominant team. We have dominated some teams, but we're a team that is suspect to bad shooting and cold shooting, and not a team that can overcome deficits or when we get down too bad. So it's going to be interesting. But I do hope we can take the next 3, give us some confidence. That at Florida game is looking really, really tough now, tougher and tougher. So we got our hands full, but we need to try to get better, get prepared for the tournament, and try to get better from where we were last year. That's all I want to see. Okay, in the SEC tournament, let's make a better showing. Let's try to make it to the 3rd weekend of the NCAA.
Awesome.
And then let's see what our roster shakes out to be with the young guys that are coming in next year. We'll see where we are.
When are you going to be back over this way?
Oh man! So I was coming to the Kentucky game, but we had some little mishaps up here, so I've got to take care of some business. But I'm hoping I make it to at least one game. I know I'm going to be there in Auburn in April, and of course, I'll probably be at 4 or 5 football games this year.
Okay.
I know I'm going to Missouri and Kentucky, and we'll be there for several home games. But
Sweet.
I may actually not make it to the basketball game. I had to sell my Kentucky tickets, which is a shame, but just happens sometimes.
I mean, you stand on business. Why not? Why not? So, hey, that's what you got to do when you're a captain, man.
Yeah, we got to do it, man. But I will say this: I'm proud of this team for who they are. I think there's nobody that is more angry about the loss or upset or flustered than this team. They don't want to shoot bad, but they do on the road. We don't know why, but they do. We've got some difficulties on one-on-one matchups in certain games with some of these teams, but we just got to keep fighting. We're in the games. Despite bad shooting, we're still in the games, which is crazy. And the guys, they got to look at the big picture. I hope Bruce will get them there and bounce back with a win next week against Vandy, and then let the cards fall where they fall.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Why not? It's awesome having you back on the air with us, man. Don't be a stranger, all right?
Yeah. And say big war damn Eagle. Again, proud of the team. We got some things to fix, but we're on the right track. So everybody stick behind them.
I like that. That's good. That's good advice. Appreciate your support of me and the channel all the time, brother, and Auburn too.
Yeah, man. See you, JG.
All right. See you. Bye. There he is. Why not AU? One of our channel legends and an all-around, I mean, just a great Auburn person. Auburn graduate, Auburn enthusiast, and definitely supportive of this basketball team. You like to see it. You like to see it because at this point, when they lose 2 on the road, it takes a little fortitude to say, hey, man, I know we got the right coach. I like this team. Just got to get some stuff figured out. And that I think that's the right answer. I think that's the right answer. Again, long time to go. And I think the schedule, the way that it works out, I think they'll have a lot of good opportunities to get better. I mean, you look at it. I'm looking over here on that side of the screen. Your biggest challenges at this point are going to be basically any road game, but at Tennessee on February 28th is going to be a problem. That's going to be a very difficult game to win. At Georgia's playing better basketball. Had a huge comeback in the game against Florida today. Ultimately lost in overtime, but they're playing better basketball for sure. But Kentucky's a team that you don't want to play in Rupp. They've got them in Neville. South Carolina's a team you don't really want to play them in Columbia right now. They just beat the doors off Kentucky the other day. You got them in Neville. At Florida is a challenge, but I think it's doable. Alabama and Neville, I feel like Auburn's got the edge there. At Ole Miss is a tricky one. I've seen Auburn teams go over there a bunch of times and have trouble. And I think Ole Miss is going to be sore after the way things unfolded in Neville a couple weeks ago. So that could be a tough one. But, you finish out with Mississippi State at home, at Missouri, and then Georgia at home. That's 3 winnable games right there, are games you think Auburn will be favored in. Then you go into Nashville with some inertia, and who knows what happens from there. I think that's kind of what Why Not was talking about with his call, and that's kind of the way I'm seeing it. Let's see. Scott C says Tennessee and Kentucky on the road and favored. Tennessee down 5 at the half. Kentucky down 5 late first half. We'll be curious to see how they respond. Kentucky Wildcats, a similar team to Alabama in my mind, a team that has a ton of talent and they just haven't quite got it together yet. Alabama's playing better than Kentucky right now, but Alabama lost 6 games this season already, all of them against quality opponents, but nonetheless. Wow, we got a big super chat coming through from Farm Data. With a good little joke there. I blame ADAG's bus rides. That's pretty funny. For those of you who don't know or don't remember, ADAG was trying to cut some corners back. This was actually before COVID. It's easy to remember this as COVID, but this is in 19. He was trying to cut some trips and trim some fat out of the budget in a way that I think a lot of people thought was very strange. And probably in a way kind of sealed his fate, right? I don't know. As an athletic director in the SEC, particularly of a top half of the SEC program like Auburn, where there's a lot of money, you just don't go around cutting people's budgets. So when Farm Data says I blame ADAG's bus rides, yeah, that was a thing, particularly with baseball. And also basketball they had to fly or they had to drive back from like Meridian or something like that. I don't know. Farm Data says, are we a quad 1 win for Alabama? Absolutely. Auburn is 100% a top 50 team. Mm-hmm. There was a lot on the line for that game in Coleman. I think Mississippi State was going to be a quad 2 win had Auburn won it, but Pocket says, aren't they taking the bus back today? And I'd have to check on that. Honestly, I didn't ask them like how they drove there, how they got there. I will say that they had an unpleasant flying experience. I think the last time that they came back from Mississippi State was when they got stuck in Meridian, and they did not have a good time on that trip at all. So I don't necessarily know that they would be super mad about it. But I will look into this and see what's going on. I'll just say that I'm not talking about Bruce specifically, but I just haven't heard much complaining about a lack of resources from the AD. I haven't heard that. And I talked to some folks that would normally be complaining about that and have complained about it in the past when Allen was doing it. But that's not something I specifically have asked about. So we'll get to the bottom of that ASAFP. Appreciate you, Farm Data. Thanks for jumping in and supporting the channel, supporting me, supporting Auburn. Just being a credible dude. Also a great poster on the bunker as well. Well, have we gone to the end of the road here? I think we've talked about it all, really. We did a little football talking, specifically with J-Head, talking about Will Redmond, the new DPP, Director of Player Personnel. Actually, I think he's the GM of Auburn football, but has been a DPP in the past and will be a very important figure in Auburn talent acquisition over the next however long, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. I plan on doing stories about him and Ethan and kind of shed some light on their role and how important they are in the Auburn enterprise in the coming months. We'll see how that works. I mean, Will hasn't even gotten here yet, but I do want to write more about that and kind of focus on that side a little bit more because it's almost kind of a mystery, and I don't think those guys want to be a mystery. I think it's just still a area of the business of the enterprise that's still kind of coming together. Still, how best to leverage Auburn's heritage or tradition with the money that it has for NIL, the things that it needs on the field. It's still kind of being formulated now because NIL just dropped in everybody's lap, 2.5 years ago or 2 years ago out of nowhere, and it was a chaotic situation. Some schools made more sense of it than others. I thought Auburn was middle of the pack. But I think John Cohen and Hugh Freeze have been really pushing to try to get Auburn more toward the top. I do want to give credit to Ole Miss. I think they have done an outstanding job with their collective and the way that they have kind of streamlined that with the things, understanding what the basketball team needs, what the football team needs, and they have done a nice job with that. So I think they've taught some people. People are learning some lessons from them as well. Corey W. in the chat says, Wardam Commodore. My man, I think I've seen you recently. Although we got kicked out of the bar last night. Not because of bad behavior, because they were closing. A little earlier maybe than you and I would have expected. But that's okay. And also, Runner 24 says, smash those likes before this thing comes to a close. Close. 19 likes so far. We had like 15,000 people on this show, so I'm surprised we didn't get more likes, but that's okay. Yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up there, guys. Kind of a difficult day for the Auburn Tigers, who lose 64-58 at Starkville, a game that surprised me a little bit. Auburn just never clicked, and they've got to find a way to get their foot down on the road when things aren't going great and turn things around a little more authoritatively than they did today. But I'm still high on this team. I think they're going to be good. I think they are good. Maybe not quite the fourth best team in the country, but I think they're in the top 10 to 15, and they've got a lot of room to improve. And they will do that. BP technically, I should say traditionally, gets more out of his team than most. And I think he will do that in this case as well. So, I want to thank Jackson, TPB 314. I'm not sure I called him out, and I should have. TPB 314. He said Redmond is a huge get. Hate to see Trevon leave, but wish him the best. True Auburn man. Something that I completely agree with on all fronts. TPB, I'm sorry I didn't respond to that, brother. I should have. Knuman, Farm Dad, and then Revenge jumps in here with a late one. But we love Revenge, early, middle, or late. Says I got to run. Just remember, be hot in March, and all is forgiven. That is, boy, truer words have never been spoken. War Damn Eagle, he says. We love Revenge, one of our favorites here on the channel, and also a great poster on the bunker, although I'm not going to tell you what his handle is. And also a big shout out to Jay Head for giving us some time tonight. Always awesome to have him on the show. He speaks so authoritatively about things, and we love having him here with his intel. And also, why not AU for just being a stud and calling in on his drive back to Richmond. And just being a great Auburn dude and a great bunker guy. We love having him here and on the bunker as well. So check you guys out. The next game is going to be an 8 o'clock tip yet again. So I'm not going to do a show after the Vanderbilt game, but tentatively we will shoot for the game at Ole Miss. It's a 5 o'clock tip on a Saturday. Means we'll probably get on the air at like 8 Central, 9 Eastern. We can probably make that work. And I think we'll have stuff to talk about at that point. So let's see. 8256 says real quick, what is the biggest thing they need to improve on in your opinion as it stands today? Just I think it's just the concept of you've got to step your play up when the situation demands it. A lot of times you would describe that as maturity, and I'm not sure that it is for this team. I think it's just a matter of understanding who's got to do what when things get nasty. Does Jalen got to take some shots a little closer to the bucket? They need to feed Janai. They need to ease back on the contested 26-foot three-point shots. Aiden, I think there's just a learning process about what to do when it's buckle down time. What do we do? We've got to lean into the things that Auburn is best at and do that. And I don't think they do that. They didn't do that well at Alabama, and I didn't think they did it today either. Janai is an incredible resource. Feed him the ball. 5 of 7 he was from the floor today. He probably needs more shots. And he played 34 minutes. I mean, fuck, he was out there. Jalen probably didn't need to shoot the three. He didn't have it today, but he could do stuff closer to the bucket. Feed those guys. I like that better than a contested three from 27 feet from Aiden, I'll tell you that. Anyway, guys, I will see you 1 week from today when Auburn plays at Ole Miss, and we will get things done at that point. Also, the Bourbon Blend show that I do with my wife, and usually our friends from across the street, Denton's mom and dad, cousin Becky from across the street, on Thursday nights, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. Literally thousands of people on there, and we talk about bourbon, we talk about Auburn basketball, we talk about Auburn football, we talk about it all. So, and my wife's pretty cool. So, anyway, guys, hopefully we'll check you out at one of those two. Regardless, love you guys. Let's make great decisions out there, and check you next time. Peace.